At Tetra Pak, we believe that business, government, and organizations must come together to find solutions to the world's challenges and help build a low-carbon circular economy. That's why we're proud to partner with the Cambridge Institute for Sustainability Leadership. Aris Vrettos, Director of Open Programs and International Markets at CISL, is here to explain the challenges and opportunities that we're exploring together.
Great, Aris, thank you for joining us. So perhaps you could just start by talking a little bit about the commercial imperative for companies to deliver against the SDGs, and within that context, a little bit about your collaboration with Tetra Pak.
Thank you. I think it's become clear that we can no longer talk about business as usual. The context for business is clearly changing, and it's changing rapidly, and it's changing radically. And we have a combination of instability, scarcity, and disruption, which is creating a whole new expectations for business and what business growth means in the context of climate change, in the context of ecosystem health and biodiversity, but also social stability and changing preferences. And so business models that are still predicated on unsustainability, whether we're talking about forms of energy or transport that are not as clean as some of the newest alternatives, or about less healthy food options and food products, or operations producing a lot of waste. Those types of business models are either already failing or are under extreme scrutiny. And of course, in contrast, the models that are trying and succeeding in addressing some of those concerns are leapfrogging and are stepping ahead in the competition, coming up with new ideas and new ways of engaging customers. And so there is a really strong case these days for leading, either being the innovator or being the early adopter and leading early. Specifically when it comes to the SDGs and the commercial imperative with implementing the Sustainable Development Goals, the SDGs are highly interconnected. It's very difficult to consider implementing and delivering one without responding or some way addressing the others. And of course, they're quite holistic, and so they require a systemic perspective. So the business case is to help deliver an economy that enables companies, with the right incentives and the right approaches to deliver on the SDGs. If we don't do that, and if companies and the business community at large do not do that, either we all lose and suffer the consequences of an unsustainable economy with climate instability and lack of access to resources and so on, or companies that are quick to move win and to respond to the science and the policy and the consumer preferences move ahead, and others struggle for survival. And there are companies who have acknowledged that. And it's in that context where we started to work with Tetra Pak a few years ago and kind of try to understand what the conversation looks like. How do we create more of a case for the business community and more businesses to come together and create incentives and practices and relationships that allow businesses, forward-looking companies, to move closer towards that sustainable economy.
Brilliant, thank you. And based on your work together to date, what's your impression of Tetra Pak's understanding of the importance of sustainability leadership?
So we work with Tetra Pak in a number of ways. So we've worked together to progress the conversation. We've also done some work in education and capacity building at the senior leadership team and the Sustainability Forum. And I think that the team at Tetra Pak has done a really good job and has worked really hard to bring the organization together in shaping a comprehensive view of sustainability, and one that encompasses climate change, biodiversity, land use, circularity, as well as issues around social fairness, development objectives, and so on. And they're also working on some very ambitious goals for 2030 in those areas more specifically, and of course more immediate priorities when it comes to things like circularity, of course. And what we have seen working with a team is a kind of a real commitment, and it feels like sustainability is actually at the very top of the agenda in the Tetra Pak conversation these days, which provide a great platform for the team to engage the wider organization, but also some of its stakeholders externally.
What more would you like to see companies like Tetra Pak doing in the future?
In my experience working with businesses, I think there's a lot of good practice from the corporate world, and there's lots of great initiatives. And the underlying issue is urgency and scale. How fast can we move, and at what type of scale, so that we actually deliver an adequate and effective response. I think, and this is captured in CSL's regarding the economy framework, I think that two of the most challenging tasks, and the ones that we would be demanding from the more forward-looking businesses, is first, to start adapting and editing, if you like, the business model, to make sure that the core business model of the company is the way it makes money, the way it creates value for the different stakeholders, does not deliver on sustainability, does not continue to contribute to climate instability, social unfairness, and so on, but actually is working to respond to those issues, and increasingly goes closer to the net positive type of contribution. The second is to be an agent of change, an advocate for change. For forward-looking companies to join the conversation and the platform whereby they work with others, they engage other stakeholders, financiers, governments, consumers, importantly, to help create the incentives, the narrative, the language that we need to be moving quickly, making different types of choices and working towards the sustainable economy. And we need to do that very quickly. We need to come up new ways to operate within a 1.5 degree world where land and good land and land for biodiversity is increasingly valuable, and the social contract, the relationship between business and society are starting to get a little bit tighter and a little bit more inclusive than they are today.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Aris.